for America,
and to the
and
and to the republic
for
which
which it stands,
stands
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with liberty and justice for all.
all.
Thank you. We are being broadcast live over Van Buren Township's YouTube channel. We will be on their TV channel. Clerk Wright, would you please call the roll?
A minute. Okay. Trustee White,
present.
Trustee Miller,
Here.
Trustee Martin,
Here,
Trustee Frazier,
Here,
Treasurer Bud,
Here.
the clerk is present, Supervisor McNair,
Here.
we have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item is the agenda, executive summary. After we set the agenda today, we will vote on the consent agenda. This is the area where we pay our recurring standard bills like payroll, electric bills, and such like that. We'll then have a public hearing where anyone that wishes to make a request by Ashley Capital, Ashley Capital's Crossroads Development, they are requesting it to establish an industrial development district. After that, after we're done with that, we'll go into new business, which the first one will be to consider Ashley Crossroads Industrial Development District, which would be off Ecorse Road. They're requesting the ability to form an industrial development district over the boundary of that property. The district would allow future tenants to seek tax abatement from the township and the state in return for jobs. We will then be looking at approving a recommendation from the Planning Commission to clean up or clarify some language on what types and sizes of buildings are allowed on a commercially zoned piece of property. We're then going to be looking at Camping World. Camping World is coming to request a demolition of
what happened?
we lost you.
His face is frozen.
Oh,
Kevin's frozen in time.
uh-oh.
That's that township Wi-Fi.
Time for an upgrade.
Snap out of it, Kevin.
Come on.
Uh-oh. He's in deep trance right now.
I hope he knows that it's frozen.
I don't think he does. He's going at it by himself.
Okay, moderator.
Yeah, it looks like we lost him. Hold on, let me get him on the phone. Hopefully he's just trying to log back in.
Hey everybody, this is Ryan. I'm talking to Kevin right now. He lost internet and he's gonna just restart it real quick. And if that doesn't work, he'll come over to my office. So just give him one moment.
All right.
Everybody been staying cool?
Trying to.
Right, I'm trying to, I wish.
Stay
Yeah.
inside.
Yeah, it's pretty warm.
And it's supposed to stay that way for a few days more.
Yeah, then like we get like a 3-day break and then it's coming back again.
Yeah.
Reminds me of my childhood because it was 95 to 100 almost every day during the summertime, July and August.
Don't let me even think about that, Paul.
I know, but we were used to it. We were used
Man,
to it, Leon.
I know, that's why I keep hearing every time I go home.
Mhm.
You're used to it. I'm not
Yeah.
no more.
That's true. That's true.
Here he is. He's back from the,
Yeah,
That's of the internet.
sorry about that. I guess I've got to use earphones in this location, but I'm back. Okay, so basically let's skip right over that to the adoption of the revised agenda. Can I get a motion to adopt the revised agenda?
I'll make a motion to adopt the revised agenda.
Thank you.
support.
support with Bud. Hearing no further discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Gotta be roll call.
Does. Thanks. Leon, could you call roll? Thank you.
Hold on. Trustee Frazier,
Yes.
trustee Frazier, trustee
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
trustee Martin,
Yes.
treasurer Bud,
Yes.
yes for me, trustee White,
Yes.
supervisor,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you. Next item is the adoption of the consent agenda. Trustee White, would you make the?
Okay, adoption of the consent agenda. The number one item will be the board meeting minutes of June 16th, 2020. Item number two, the prepaid list of June 18th, 2020. Number three, the prepaid list of June 25th of 2020. Number four, the prepaid list of July 2nd, 2020. Number five, the voucher list of July 7th, 2020. I move for the adoption of the consent agenda.
Support?
Support.
Trustee Frazier? Okay, I have a motion and I've got support. Hearing no discussion. All in favor? Oh, excuse me,
Aye.
Clerk Wright, you'll have to make it roll. Clerk Wright, you'll have to call roll.
Got to unmute myself. I keep them up.
I
I'm
forget.
trying to keep it on mute. Trustee White,
Yes.
trustee Frazier,
Yes.
trustee Miller,
Yes.
trustee Martin,
Yes.
treasurer Bud,
Yes.
yes for me, supervisor,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay, see, next item is a public hearing. To go into a public hearing, we require a roll call vote. Can I get a motion to go into a public hearing?
Supervisor.
To a public hearing.
Support.
Okay, I've got Bud and Miller.
Yes.
Roll call vote to go into public hearing, please.
Okay. Treasurer. Lost me now. Treasurer Bud,
Yes.
I lost my video.
We can,
Trustee Martin,
Yes.
trustee
can-
Frazier,
Yes.
trustee Miller,
Yes.
trustee White,
Yes.
yes for me, supervisor,
yes.
motion passes.
Okay, we are in the public comment period for Industrial Development District. I'm going to call on Director Stevenson to give us an overview. And then we're going to have a little bit of a problem here figuring that out. Thank you. Go ahead, Director Stevenson.
Hi. Okay. This public hearing is to receive public comment to consider the request to establish an industrial development district, which will be district number 25. The request consists of approximately 293 acres, and it has multiple tax parcels, about 31 tax parcels. It's located along E-Course on the north side and Haggerty Road. All the affected taxing authorities were notified via certified mail, along with the public hearing notice was published in our local paper of record for 3 consecutive weeks. The items included in your agenda packet are the letter we received requesting the establishment of the Industrial Development District, the legal description of the parcels, Resolution 2020-09, and a map of the property.
Okay, is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak? We have somebody from Ashley Capital, but we'll hold off on that unless there's somebody that doesn't want to speak. In other words, we'll go with it at the line item, probably. Is there anybody that wishes to speak from the public on this issue? Do you have to do anything?
Supervisor, I see no hands raised and no questions in the chat. So I think we're
Thank you.
okay.
Okay, then I would like to close the public hearing and then go into new business where we will discuss this. I need a motion and support and a roll call. Motion,
I make a motion.
Trustee Miller,
Support.
Mr. Martin. And then hearing No further discussion. We call for roll. Clerk.
Well, I actually did the support, but that's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Change it to, right. I'm sorry.
Okay, roll call is trustee Martin,
Yes.
trustee Frazier,
Yes.
trustee White,
Yes.
trustee Miller,
Yes.
treasurer Bud.
yes,
Yes for me, clerk Wright, supervisor.
Yes. Okay,
Motion
next
passes.
item then is to, correspondence, announcements, and presentations. I have none except for to say that the splash pad is open. I can hear screaming and yelling and laughing kids from 300 yards away through the walls. They're having fun. So, but does anybody else have any announcements they'd like to make?
I have a quick update.
Thank you.
Just like to announce that so far we have issued 5,891 ballots, which 17% has been returned, which total 1,101. Our permanent AB list now stands at 7,587 people.
Wow. Okay.
That's-
A lot of
that's
work for you.
That's a new world record for Van Buren Township.
Clerk?
Yes.
Clerk Wright,
Yes.
could you give us an example of some of the issues that you're facing with that? So anybody who's watching or even us can know and understand some of the issues that we should try to avoid.
Well, the only concerns that we have is that the Secretary of State sent out 23,000 absentee applications for the township of Van Buren, and so everyone has an application, and I want everyone that has asked to request for a ballot to know that they don't have to walk that ballot into the township hall if they don't need to. We ask that they drop it off in the mailbox outside to try to limit the exposure. We're still trying to limit exposure in regards to COVID-19. So I know everyone has their concerns regarding absentee ballot, but I assure you that if you drop your ballot off in that mailbox, we pick them up 3-4 times a day. We check the box at least. We check it when we come in. We check it again mid-morning, midday, mid-afternoon, just before we leave. So your ballot will get received by the clerk office, and it will be stored until election day and counted. And I'd just like to also, anyway, we're getting ready to submit the what is this? The third quarter, Kevin, of the Michigan. I mean of the Van Buren, our magazine.
It is.
Third quarter. The clerk, we're gonna have a page in there with some questions and answers. It's a little gimmick page, but it's most asked questions regarding absentee voting that people ask, and the most, most questions regarding questions like, do my ballot actually get counted? Of course it does. Do we throw away ballots? We don't in Van Buren Township. We want to make sure every vote
I
counts.
hope not.
Exactly. We never even think about throwing away, and there's no way a ballot could be thrown away. And just to give you an idea why I say that, if a ballot gets thrown away, that means our count is thrown off, and we have to match to the exact amount at AB Counting Board. When AB Counting Board counts the ballots on election day, they have to match exactly. So if even one of those ballots is missing, it has to be accounted for. So if someone throws away a ballot or pulls out 10, especially 100, there's no way we could balance. So I just want people to know that you have to balance in the AB counting room in regards to absentee ballots. So this idea that ballots are thrown away or put in the garbage can, that's a huge myth. I can't attest for what happens in other states because elections are not ran the same in every other state. But in Michigan, elections is ran on the local level by the local clerks and city clerks. And all but 8 states in the United States, elections are ran by the Secretary of State solely or in conjunction with the Secretary of State and their county administrator. Now, what happens in those states, I don't know, but I know in Michigan, there's no way that we can run elections, no way that you can throw away ballots and balance. And it just wouldn't happen. It can't happen. You wouldn't balance, it wouldn't be validated, and we would have to account for. That's it. So look at the magazine that's coming out. I guess it's getting ready to be published now. It has some good questions and answers regarding absentee ballot and absentee ballot voting.
Okay. All right, anybody else?
Yes, I think we should let our residents know that the Yankee Air Museum had canceled Thunder over Michigan this year.
I didn't know that, did they?
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, we're moving now on down to public comment. Public comment is a time for anybody that wishes to public on anything that's currently going to be on the agenda today. Is there anybody that wishes to speak?
I still see no hands raised or no comments in the chat. So I think
Looks
we're
like I
okay.
got a Mike Cole with a hand up.
Oh, just happened. Perfect. Mike, I will allow you to talk. Go ahead.
Hey, I just want to make a comment. The only agenda item that is there is the discussion about the expedited service for restaurants to have outdoor seating and things like that. The chamber just wants to just to let you know that we appreciate any opportunity that you can do to expand the capacity of our members as much as possible during this time. I have a feeling we're going to be at 50% or even lower for the next several months, and anything that we can do to keep food and drinks pouring, whether it's in the parking lot or wherever it has to be, we do appreciate it. I know there's only a few members right there on Belleville Road that'll be accepting that, but we do want to thank you for the expedited movement on that. I know you haven't talked about it yet, but I'm assuming you're going to vote yes. So
That's the time. This is the time to mention that the chamber is supporting that item.
yes, we are definitely supporting it. We've been pushing it for several weeks. So yes, it's already been approved in Belleville and actually implemented in 4th Street Square. So hopefully Applebee's and Twisted and all the other people can do this same thing. So we do appreciate it.
Okay.
Supervisor, I'd just like to say how important our restaurants are to the health and welfare of our residents, and especially me. I go to restaurants all the time, but it's a great asset for our community, and Belleville Road has a lot of great restaurants and a lot of people from out of town come in here to go to places like Twisted Rooster and Cracker Barrel and those. So it's an important part of our community, and we need to support it.
Yeah, if I just to add a little bit, when the COVID crisis first kicked off, I did a quick survey, a consensus of some sort. We have anywhere from 1,000 to 1,200 employees in the 48111 that work in the restaurant business. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. So just to let you know how important it is as well.
All right. Thank you very much. We're going to be moving forward again. We have no unfinished business. The next item is new business. The first item is discussion on and to consider a resolution to establish an industrial development district. Can I get a motion for approval before we start opening this up?
I make a
Supervisor,
motion.
Trustee White?
yes. Open up agenda item number 1 for discussion on and to consider approval of resolution 2020-9 to establish an industrial development district number 25.
Support.
Okay, let's begin this thing with Director Stevenson. We also have Susan Harvey here from Ashley Capital.
Well, basically, I've pretty much stated that we received a request for this. And what it consists of is about 293 acres. This is very common to get requests like this to create districts. I know they've started construction over there, so they're looking off into the future planning. I do think it's probably best that we turn it over to Susan Harvey now to just kind of explain what their project is and why they're looking for this district.
Okay, Susan? Ms. Harvey?
Hi, thank you very much. So yeah, for anybody that doesn't know, we have the development on the south side of E-Course as well. That's a little over 1 million square feet. And we have 2 buildings under construction on the north side of E-Course. And we would like to establish a industrial development district so that if we do have tenants that are qualified for a tax abatement, that they would be able to apply. And as I understand the way the statute works, establishing the district in no way gives anybody a tax abatement. It just opens the door so that if they are qualified and it's a company that the township really would like to have, tax abatement is a possibility for them, but they would have to go through an application process, be approved at the township level and the state level. So it's just to make that a possibility in case we get those kinds of tenants that are eligible.
We'll open this up for discussion. I have a feeling there's a few people. Trustee Miller.
So let me understand this correctly. So there's 293.81 acres, but you're only developing 114 acres, but yet you want this redistrict to cover all the land. Why is that?
Well, for one, it's because it is the long-term plan is to have this whole area be a larger industrial park. That's what it's known for. That's what we intend over a number of years. Of course, we don't want to build more now than we can fill with tenants and have vacancy. So it just made sense to us to apply for the district. And again, there's not really any harm in doing that because the township always can say no to any applicant for any reason whatsoever. Also, even on the vacant land that we don't currently have plans to build on, it would not be unlikely to get a big tenant that comes along maybe through the state of Michigan Economic Development Group who's looking for a build to suit. So maybe it's one of those multi-state searches. It's a company that isn't even on our radar right now and they're looking to build a manufacturing facility. And this is a great spot right by the expressway, great land. So even though we're not developing that northern part currently, having that district in place would make this a more attractive site for that kind of potential user. And there, I don't see the downside because the township is never obligated to give a tax abatement if they choose not to.
Well, I'm not talking or questioning the tax abatement. My concern is you're developing 114 acres, but you're asking to have this redistrict for 300 acres, yet we haven't seen any plans on the rest of it. So I'm really apprehensive on moving forward with 300 acres to go ahead and give that okay. And I need a better understanding, and I know you can explain this. What is a speculative designation meaning? Can you ask for?
I don't think we are asking for that now. I think we're just, there was some confusion. I've talked to Linda Stevenson today. I've talked to somebody at the state of Michigan. 20 years ago, when we did industrial development districts, even in the Van Buren Township, they would give a speculative building designation. I think right now, all we're asking for, although Linda and I have corresponded, we're going to clear this up. Procedural thing, I just want to make sure we do it right. I think by establishing the district, that just, all it does is say, okay, this is an IDD. The tenant may apply. I do not think this time we need to be applying for a speculative building designation in addition to the IDD.
Okay, my other concern is with the Haggerty Road in E-Course. Won't this bring more traffic? Because Haggerty Road, the condition of Haggerty is terrible. So I wanted to address that as well.
So
And
that
is this already zoned? What is this already zoned currently?
it is zoned for the development. It's industrially zoned.
So why are we rezoning it or redistricting it?
We're not. So when you have industrial zoning, that does not mean that you have an industrial development district. That's an overlay on top of an industrial zoned area. So we are not here asking for rezoning. And we already have site plan approval for what
Right.
we're doing. And we do have a, future conceptual site plan that the township has seen for a bigger industrial park as time goes on.
Right.
We do
So-
have that. And as far as Haggerty Road goes, we are talking about improving it. We've been working with the township and we've been working with Wayne County to develop a plan to improve Haggerty Road. So that is all underway and part of this whole process.
Great. I'm glad to hear that because, I am the township along with this board, and I'm sure the rest of the board members are elated to hear that you're willing to help with Haggerty Road. So do you have anything to show the board for the rest of the acreage here? So 114 acres, I don't have a problem with. It's the rest of it with the district. So what is going to be done with that exactly? How many, and also I want to ask you, how many tenants are you planning on putting in what you are developing?
So I'll answer that question first. So these buildings are designed to be very flexible, which is why they've been very successful for us throughout the Detroit metro area and other areas where we develop. We could have as one big tenant, or the building could be demised into as many as 8 separate tenants. So that if somebody comes along and says they need 85,000 square feet, we can accommodate them, or if they need 600,000 square feet, we can accommodate them. So it is a speculative development, meaning we went ahead and started construction without having tenants in place. And so as these tenants come along, and we are talking to some right now, the building is easily demised into the right size space for them. So that's the answer to the first 2 buildings, how many tenants. And the answer to the other question is we do have, we are actually site plan approved for the 3rd building already. So we call the first 2 4 and 5, buildings 4 and 5. And the reason they're numbered 4 and 5 is because 1, 2, and 3 are on the south side of Ecorse Road. And building 6 is already site plan approved. And we actually are building the construction pad for that. But again, we don't want to go forward until we have good leasing activity that justifies the additional construction. And the grand plan is to continue going north Warren Road with more buildings that are essentially very similar to what we've built. The ones on Haggerty will be smaller buildings, but they're all very flexible, light industrial, distribution type buildings.
Supervisor.
My last question to you is, and maybe Linda or even Treasurer Bud can answer this. How many projects have we done like this where it hasn't been developed and we gave permission for the district? Treasurer Bud, maybe you can answer that, being on the Planning Commission.
Linda might know it better because usually we know what's going to be there when they come in and set up the district. So we usually have an idea of what's going there. And on this project, we know what's going in on the buildings that are 4, 5, and 6, and the land was all combined. When I'm looking at this, I'm looking at a whole bunch of parcels that are spread over this 291 acres that don't have any designation. I guess I wouldn't mind setting up the district for where the 4, 5, and 6 building are, because that is combined under one parcel. But the carte blanche, give it to the whole parcel, I have a problem with that.
Thank you.
Supervisor.
Trustee Frazier.
Personally, I feel that it's a win-win for us, and I see it as us being proactive. When the economy does recover and get better, we will be in a position having this land available and already ready to go, I think it'll be a plus for us in the township. We're always wanting to grow our tax base, and I think this is a good way to do that. I understand that we only have partial plan, but I think going ahead with approving it ahead of time is a good idea. That's my take on it.
If I could, I'd also like to add, and correct me if I'm wrong, but having done this on a lot of sites, it is almost a quirk in the way the legislation is written, because the land is designated industrial already. So we're not changing the approved uses for the land. And I don't understand, I don't see any downside. The upside is what was just stated, which is it's attractive. It might attract a company that says, hey, I'm going to build, 900,000 square feet of manufacturing plant and have, hundreds or thousands of jobs. And if they're on a multi-state search, they're looking at Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, having this industrial development district in place, it just shortens the time frame for them because they know that they can apply for a tax abatement. District in place, the application for tax abatement can't really be considered or reviewed. So putting it in place ahead of time is just getting ahead of it so that we don't lose a deal. The township doesn't lose a good company because this process, takes a month or 2 months. That can be a long time when somebody's in decision-making mode.
Yeah, Supervisor, sometimes these companies are looking for something that's ready to go rather than dragging it out and having to go through the whole fight and, weighing their chances. Well, will we win this? Well, we won't win this, and so we'll be ready. And I think it's a plus for us.
I'd like to ask a question of the director, because I think Trustee Frazier and Trustee Miller and Trustee Budd have all made excellent arguments. Director Stevenson, is there a downside to approving the district over the entire 293 acres versus the 114? Is there anything bad that could happen in the future to us by doing that?
No, the only downside to approving a district before we actually know what might be coming in there or tenant-wise is that person that comes in, if the Van Buren Township decides that one isn't a good fit or they don't want to give an abatement for that particular company, that company does have an appeal process then to the state of Michigan. So if Van Buren Township was going to tell someone that they weren't going to give them a tax abatement, they would have to have a pretty good reason as to why they were denying them, and not just denying them because they don't want to give an abatement, okay? Because there would be an appeal to the state of Michigan. And truthfully, if that was an industrial facility that qualified, the state would grant them the abatement. So that would be the only thing in the long range. But I think at this point, with the overall site concept, we're kind of seeing what is planned for that whole parcel at this time. I can understand Treasurer Budd's thoughts because the parcels probably could have all been combined. Yeah. Maybe before this request came in, and that would have made it nice and pretty and simple because it would have just been one big parcel at that time. But that could have been done probably beforehand. But I think with what was going on with COVID and things like that, we might have requested that before if we would have thought about it. But those are just my feelings on it.
Does anybody else? Yes, Trustee.
So Director Stevenson, is it too late to combine those now, even after they establish the district?
Well, I would think before they would even know, that's not too late to combine them at any time. I would think that before they can probably move on with more planning on any of those other buildings, they would be required to combine all of those lots anyway. So
So
at
does
some
this-
point, they're going to be required. At some point, they're going to be required to combine those lots.
That is our intention. We
So this-
absolutely intend to
I'm sorry.
combine.
Do
The
the
drawing
chair.
that we have now, I'm sorry, still one more
Trustee
question.
Martin?
The drawing that we have now, does this represent the entire acreage, or is this the 114 that you're building on now?
It's all.
It's all of it.
It's all of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all of it.
Supervisor,
Trustee White?
I'm looking at the parcel right now, and it appears that there's 18 homeowner sites on Haggerty Road and possibly 5 or 6 off of Van Born Road. How many of these parcels are currently occupied?
I'm sorry, I actually don't have that in front of me. We have that information. We're aware of every one of these. We own some of the parcels now ourselves, but there are a few.
Meaning homeowners?
Yes,
Those are
yes, meaning
homes?
homeowners. And you say there's a few, and I'm sure you know exactly how many there are.
I do. I just don't have that. I don't have that in front of me right now.
Right, right. And my concern is what you offer the residing homeowners in there now. And I understand that we're going to change their tax abatement now. I mean, change their property IDs as far as that goes as to what it'll be, and they'll be rezoned at that point in time as the zoning that you're asking for, which will be industrial. And they'll never be able to sell their house but only to one person. And that will be to the person that's purchasing this property, because no, they won't be able to sell their house outside to someone else, but only to that person, more than likely, because no one's ever going to buy a home that is zoned industrial, because they'll know that eventually they'll have to leave. So we must make sure that these residents are taken care of. And I can tell you that you will retain your money in the long run, because that property is valuable. And I just hope that these residents get what they're entitled to when that's changed to industrial, because that will increase the value of a home when you put a very large a complex on there, and the price will go up. And I'm sure maybe Ms. Stevenson can answer this. Mrs. Stevenson, considering the current tax value of that property and the amount of revenue we get from it, what would you project the percentage of increase or decrease to be in this property after the building is constructed?
Well, you're asking me to pull a number from somewhere. I mean, these are, so are you talking about the residential parcels, or are you talking about the industrial property?
Well, the residential parcels, basically, and I know you have 25 years experience, so you have a good idea of what that acreage is going to be worth as an industrial complex there. And if they put a parking lot on that complex, and I don't know if that'll change it or not, but I certainly would like to know that since we're going to be removing the 18 plus a possible 6 to 24 parcels from residential to industrial, that we're going to put possibly anywhere from how many ever people are currently residing there into another place. And certainly that at that point in time, that the value of the land should go up.
Well, definitely will be the value of the land. Well, right now, those parcels that are still owned by residents, they're valued as residential property. They're not valued as industrial property. They're still zoned residential, and their primary use is residential. So their values are based on that. Now, if they're sold and they're rezoned to industrial, and if they're going to be an industrial use, yes, there'll be quite a jump up in the land value, because of course industrial land is a lot more valuable than residential land. So yeah, you will see an increase there. So, and it'll be substantial.
So if
But also they'll be
Okay.
building industrial buildings on there too, though,
Yeah.
so.
So really, it's a win for the township because our taxes we're gonna get more in taxes. And if they do build bigger buildings, that's better for us as far as getting employees in and maybe developing the township more community members. Who knows where this could lead? You know, I think it's a good possibility that, you know, that whole area could be a windfall for the township.
Trustee Miller's next. She's put her hand up.
So, as I understand this, redistricting this will not change the zoning on the current homes. So therefore, they're still zoned residential. But what about the quality of life for those residents? Will there be buffers put up? And I'm sure you covered that already, but I'm just concerned about residents.
So yes, and we've covered this extensively throughout the years as we've gone through and purchased the property and rezoned the property that we own, obviously not the property that others own. We have worked with the township planning department a lot to make sure that all of those buffers are more than adequate, that exceed sort of code. We've also talked with all of the people that live along Haggerty that have any interest in selling their property. We have purchased those properties. We have worked out terms with the sellers that in some cases involve them staying for 3 years after they sell their property. I think that we've been very sensitive to those issues. We want to be citizens, we want to be good neighbors. So we're very sensitive to all of that. But again, we're not here. Yeah,
It
so
seems like you want to work with the Haggerty Road issue as well. So we all appreciate that very much.
Yeah.
Treasurer.
So again, this isn't a rezoning. It's already.
Right. Exactly. It's a district. Yeah, I understand that.
Treasurer Bud.
I guess I don't see it as a win-win right now. I think it's going to be a long ways down the road before the back of that is done, which is why it won't take that. If we set a district tonight, there will be a district. It would not take that long that when they finally come with plans, when they finally have the land combined, we can create a district just about as quick as we are going to do this one tonight. If it's created, and I would suggest we only create it in the 114A. They've gone to the planning commission. They know what they're going to put there. I don't have a problem with that. We're a long ways, I do believe, before they do anything else. And it is not, so I don't see it as a win-win because we don't know what's there. The property's not. And if you look at the map she gave you, it will show you every property that they own. So there's all those outlets on Haggerty Road where they bought it. The blank ones are the ones that people still are living in. Most of the folks are living at the south end of that piece of property, but you can see every piece of property they have, and it's not been combined. We would not let anybody come in and build anything unless it has been combined and addressed. So I still have a problem converting the whole thing to a district. I don't mind the one district, but not the whole thing. It's not ready to do anything with. It doesn't meet our standards with what we would ask them to do.
Kevin.
Okay, Trustee Frazier, we're wrapping it up. This has been a couple times around.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I don't see what the downfall is to doing the whole thing. I think it will get us ahead of the curve, and it will attract another business to go in there. I think we're, shortchanging ourselves by leaving it in limbo and having somebody have to come in and do it again. I think we should just move forward and do what's requested and do the whole thing at this time so that we'll have similar zoning over there, and maybe it'll attract something right away. That's what I would hope.
Not zoning though.
It doesn't have anything to do with zoning, Sherry. It has nothing to do with zoning. The property
I do have, I have, trustee, excuse me, Clerk Wright, please.
Yeah. Well, I'm just sitting here listening. I'm trying to figure out, Mrs. Harvey, if I understand right, I mean, that area is primarily, that is our industrial district right now, so. And you want to create, so if you want to, by creating this, if you don't have any immediate plans, then you say, what's your objective to be set for future initiatives or future plans? It sounds like the treasurer who sits on our planning commission said that it's not a problem with adjusting that going forward. It's not a wait time. I don't necessarily have an issue with it. I'm just trying to wrap my head around what's the concept, why you're trying to look at all at one time.
One, I guess because it is all owned by Capital, who's an industrial developer. We're building now 2 buildings. The third is getting ready to go when we get tenants. And then the northern part of the property, it is already zoned industrial. The advantage of having what they call that industrial development district is that for companies looking to locate a qualifying, like it's manufacturing, is really what you want to see when you give a tax abatement. A lot of good jobs, high paying jobs. Those are the thresholds that the township would look at and the state would look at to even grant an abatement. With the district in place, some company doing a national search or a Midwest search would, they're going to get a report that says, okay, where are the industrial development districts? And if that's a priority for them, and it will be, then this would make it on their list because it's already a district. If that northern acreage is not already a district, it's not that they wouldn't still take the time, figure out how to go there, but it's just not, say, putting forward to make it on the list.
So
that's why.
It wouldn't put them on the top 5, maybe, when you could be on the top 5 going forward. I don't necessarily see an issue with this if that's the connection between it. I mean, it is our industrial district. As long as we set the parameters for the people that are there and have homes, and we doing, and I've been clerk for 12 years now, so I know we have been placing initiatives in place to place buffers there, and for the people that still wants to stay there. And I'm assuming you often true value for the ones that wants to sell. That is, if we're going to do that, that is the area to do it. So I really wouldn't have a problem with it.
Thank you.
Through the chair.
Trustee Martin.
I'm sorry. So if you don't establish the district, well, businesses won't be able to ask for an abatement? Is that going to stop them? They're going to stop?
It's hard to say. If without a district, then, they won't be able to come forward and ask for an abatement. So if there's another property 3 miles away where they can, or 10 miles, it would give that other property the edge over this property. And again, I can't state enough that to qualify for an abatement is tough to do. We have 20 million square feet of this kind of property just in Michigan alone. And we only have a handful of tenants that have qualified for an abatement. But when they have qualified, they've been really good tenants that have brought lots of jobs, and they've stayed a long time. So
how does the district aid them in getting an abatement? What's the factor here that
it's
helps
a little bit of a quirk in the law. They can't, the only way you can apply for a tax abatement is if you're going into an industrial development district. And without establishing that, then you can't entertain an application.
Okay, thank you. That's clear now. Thank you.
Cart and a horse kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have one last question, and I'm not sure that anybody can give me this answer. But the question is, with establishing the industrial development district, would this stop us from allowing a regional LDFA to be put over that property when it's backed by the state, not the township? Does anybody, Linda, do you know that answer?
No, I do not. Unfortunately, I do not.
All right. All right. Okay.
Why would it?
I don't know. I just, might, you know, the
mean-
thing, we've all established that Haggerty Road needs love, needs a little bit of love. It needs to be expanded. And it's in actually Capital's best interest as well as ours to expand it. And so I was looking at ways to expand it. And there's a state airtropolis LDFA that could be placed over some of these areas to capture the 5 mil from the school tax. And if that was, then that money could be moved over. So I just wanted to make sure. Okay. All right. Okay, so we currently have, can you hear me?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yes.
sorry, I'm in a different area and they've got headphones. And so currently we have a motion, and this motion is basically for the entire area to be established as an IDD. So, and that motion was made by, help me, who made that? Frazier and White and Frazier.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's what we're about to vote on.
I thought this was the hearing. There's no vote tonight. I thought it comes back. No?
It's new business item number 1, Reggie.
Yeah, we're on it right now.
No, I understand.
Okay, so the question I have then is I'm bringing forward that vote because that's the only vote I have. Unless somebody wants to make a resolution to adopt it to the 114 acres and get approval from Mr. White and Fraser to change theirs.
Mhm.
I'm hearing nothing. Hearing nothing. Clerk White, would you please call the roll? We have a motion for the entire area IDD to be established. And we have a second. Clerk White, please call the roll.
Okay, trustee White,
Yes.
trustee Frazier,
Yes.
trustee Martin,
Yes.
trustee Miller,
Yes.
treasurer Bud,
No.
yes for me. Supervisor,
Yes.
motion passed.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Harvey, and we're excited to have you help us out with Haggerty Road.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank
Have a good
you.
night.
All right, bye.
Thank you.
Next item is discussion to consider approval of a first reading. I think we're at trustee Miller. Trustee Miller, would you like to make that motion and read it off? If you don't, I'll move on.
Move on. My screen went blank.
Okay, trustee Frazier, would you like to make the motion for number 2?
Sure.
Your screen is there, Reggie.
We
Reggie.
didn't see you, Reggie.
Reggie, it's there.
No,
Hi.
I can't get it up.
It's okay. Go ahead, Sherry.
I make a motion that we consider approval of the first reading of ordinance 07-07-201 to add clarifications in order to distinguish commercial and residential / non-commercial land use in the local business district with respect to maximum building size and clarify restricts on dwellings in non-residential zoning districts.
Support.
Miller support. Okay, Director Power, could you give us an update?
Sure, thank you, board. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I'll frame this up, first of all, by saying that over the course of this year, we have looked closely at the C local business zoning district within the township, which is our lowest intensity commercial zoning district. We've taken a closer look at this district, driven in part due to development. There's a development project that is proposed on a C zone site. But in looking at this zoning district, we found some information about the way that the C district zoning ordinance was written that warrants clarification. So upon close look at the C zoning district, we looked at the fact that there is a building size limit that applies to C local business zoned parcels. And that I'll talk about more extensively shortly. And there's also limits on dwellings in non-residential zoning districts, including the C local business zoning district. So those are the two things that we're addressing with this proposed ordinance amendment tonight. I'll start by diving into the first part of that, which is related to section 3.105 of the zoning ordinance, which is the building size limit in C local business zoning. I will share my screen just to show the information I have on this topic. When we look closely at the C local business zoning district, we found that there are references to building area size limits, including that there's a limit for a single use building in this zoning district to be 10,000 square feet, or a multi-use building to be 30,000 square feet. This is peculiar. It's very distinct because elsewhere in the zoning ordinance, there are very few references to building size limits. There are references to accessory building size limits and accessory uses within the zoning districts for industrial uses related to building size. But this is pretty unique in addressing building size limit for the C zoning district. So why would we have a building size limit in the C zoning district? Well, if you look at the intent of C zoning, there's a statement here that kind of describes that this zoning district is intended to permit retail businesses and service uses which are needed to serve nearby residential areas. And there's also, I won't read the whole thing, but there's also a reference to, in order to promote such business development, uses are permitted which would not create hazards, offensive and loud uses, noises, vibration, smoke, glare, or excessive truck traffic. So if you extract from that intent or statement of purpose, what you see here is that there's an intent to discern lower intensity uses from higher intensity uses in this zoning district. And we found that the limit on building floor area was related to that intent, but it's really related to commercial land uses where building size truly in a restaurant or a retail establishment or a grocery store is a function of how intense the land use is. The bigger the building, the more trips you're generating, the more parking spaces you require, the more truck loading you require. That is very much true for commercial land uses. It is not as much the case for non-commercial land uses. So we saw the need to clarify this and look more closely at it in the context of separating the commercial from non-commercial land uses. I have some example images on the screen here. The top image on the top right is one of our fire stations. That's an example of a public building that is on a C zone parcel. Offices, schools, certain instructional institutions, certain institutional land uses, those were all crafted into the zoning ordinance as being suitable in the C zoning district, but it's not necessarily the case that larger versions of those buildings would generate the type of traffic and intensity that larger versions of commercial buildings would. And I should also mention that senior housing is one of those uses as well. And so we really wanted to take an opportunity to clarify that the building size cap is really better suited to apply to commercial land uses. This is a topic that was brought up at multiple planning commission meetings. And I will mention that there was a concern that this particular ordinance amendment for section 3.105 was geared toward a single parcel. There's a strong case that it's not, because what we see is that this would apply to every parcel that's zoned C local business. And also, if you think about master planning, there are areas of the township that are designated for conversion to commercial over time. Those areas may rezone to C local business for the parts of the master plan that are designated as local commercial. So there are additional sites that this may apply to where you have a mix of perhaps smaller and lower intensity commercial land uses and other types of non-commercial land uses that would serve a very localized context. So we think that it's important to make this clarification to discern that yes, indeed, larger commercial land uses in this, what's supposed to be the lowest intensity commercial zoning district, really should be limited or prohibited, but non-commercial or residential or institutional land uses, not so much. So that is the crux of the first ordinance amendment that I have in front of you related to section 3.105. I also have a second ordinance amendment that is, and I'll just stop my screen so we're not confused looking at the wrong section, but related to section 5.117, where we also noted that there is a reference to residential land uses in non-residential zoning districts or in commercial zoning districts. For various reasons, we think it's important to distinguish that we don't want to take a broad brush approach and prohibit residential land uses in non-residential zoning districts, particularly where there are unique land uses that the Planning Commission and the Board of Trustees finds necessary to ingrain in all the various zoning districts, such as senior housing, which was approved by the Planning Commission at a public hearing or recommended for approval just in June of 2019 and adopted by the Board of Trustees in August of 2019, including in the commercial zoning districts. So we really think it's important to clarify that as special uses become permitted by special land use permit, or if permitted uses become permitted by right because of the desire of the Planning Commission and the board, that we should distinguish that those uses are not meant to be prohibited in the districts where they are allowed in. It's somewhat contrary to why they would be passed in the first place. So the Planning Commission has taken a very close look at this over the recent months. They had a meeting on March 11th, the last in-person meeting of the Planning Commission to discuss it. They also discussed it on June 10th. And then finally at a public hearing on June 24th, the Planning Commission recommended both of these amendments to the Board of Trustees at their public hearing. So per the zoning ordinance and state law, a public hearing was held. The information about the public hearing was noticed in the paper and published as part of the agenda on the websites. And now here the board has an opportunity to act on this recommended set of zoning ordinance amendments to clarify the building size limits in the C zoning district and to clarify the prohibition of residential uses in non-residential districts. So there is a fair amount of information there. I'm glad to take questions. Of course, Treasurer Budd is on the Planning Commission as well. And I'm not sure, but Vidya Krishnan may be on the participants list, so we can try to answer questions as best we can as they come up.
Okay, does anybody have any questions on this? This has been discussed at length, so I assume there might be some.
Supervisor, so it was discussed at length on the Planning Commission. Is that correct, Treasurer Budd?
Yep, yes, it was.
Okay, and the Planning Commission is recommending this. They're behind it, correct?
Correct. It's basically just to clarify the ordinance. Yes.
Okay, okay.
Are there any other questions? Hearing none, I have a motion and I have support for a first reading. Clerk Wright, could you please call the roll?
Okay, Trustee Miller,
Yes.
Trustee Martin,
Yes.
Trustee Frazier,
Yes,
Trustee White,
Yes.
Treasury Bud,
Yes.
yes for me. Supervisor McNair,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
We're moving on to discussion and considering approval of a special land use request by Camping World. Can I get a motion?
To the chair,
Trustee Bud?
I make a motion. Okay, I make a motion that we consider approval of a special land request by King World District.
Okay, and then I think I heard Frazier or Miller?
Miller.
Miller? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, It's hard with these earphones.
Yeah.
All right, Director Power, you're back up.
Thank you. At this point, I will share my screen again. I have some information about this request. This is a request by Camping World to kind of reinvent their site in terms of demolishing roughly 15,600 square feet on the east wing of their existing building, retaining about 28,100 square feet of their building on the west end, creating new RV parking and storage and sales on the site, and related site improvements, including landscaping, parking, resurfacing, and fencing. This is a roughly 8.8 acre site, which in context, you can see it's west of Morton Taylor Road on the north side of I-94, the North I-94 Service Drive. That's shown on the map on the upper right-hand side of your screen. The Board of Trustees is acting on this particularly tonight because outdoor vehicle sales and vehicle service, minor vehicle service, is a special land use in the C2 Extensive Highway Business Zoning District, and that's the zoning that applies to this site. So this is a special land use that required a public hearing with the Planning Commission per our zoning ordinance and per the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act. And the Planning Commission acted on the request on June 24th. I will go through the recommendations from the Planning Commission, and then I will toggle to another screen that shows the before and after of what's being proposed here, just to give you some more context. I also know that Derek Matter and Paul Tulikangas from Camping World are, I believe, in the participants list for tonight's meeting, so you might entertain comments from them. But from the Planning Commission, there were recommendations. Recommendations included for special land use approval. The conditions of special land use approval include that there's a submission of a floor plan to verify provision of a permanent enclosed office for records and supervision. This is a specific standard related to special land use permits for this type of land use. There was also a condition that all of the conditions of the site plan approval are met. So as a bit of a refresher, the special land use kind of pulls out the operational aspects of a proposed land use that makes sure that there's a vetting process to ensure that the land use fits and coheres with the neighboring properties. The site plan is more about the details that show that the project meets the specific standards of the zoning ordinance. So again, there were special land use conditions and preliminary site plan conditions. The preliminary site plan conditions, it's a bit of a longer list, but these things are agreed to by the applicant and we don't see any issues with them being addressed. The circulation plan should be reviewed by the township engineer and fire department prior to final approval. There should be concrete curbing around the parking areas or demonstration of water quality treatment to the paving without the curbing. Planter and landscape island details. There needs to be township engineer and Wayne County stormwater detention approval. So approval from those two entities on the stormwater treatment, which is actually under the parking lot in this case. Consideration of facade enhancements. The fencing has to meet the zoning ordinance, which includes that it's limited to 2.5 feet and decorative in any front yard. And that is being addressed. There need to be signage details and screening fabric around the propane tank that's used for fueling. And finally, the reason we're here tonight, that the special land use approval has to be granted by the Township Board of Trustees. I'm glad to go over any of those details, but I just want to show kind of in context the comparison between before and after. The before picture is sometime in 2019 up on the upper left portion of the screen. You see the east wing of the building still on the site, which it is today. What you're going to see if this proposed project goes through is diagonally parked areas for RV sales, including that new RVs are stored and sold in the front yard areas. There will be new paving, new landscaping, And then there in the middle portion of this parking lot, which it's a little difficult to see, but the customer parking will be routed into that center area. From here, if the township board recommends or adopts a special land use approval with their motion, this would go into a more detailed review with the Wayne County Department of Public Services and the township engineer prior to receiving a final site plan review by the Planning Commission. So if there are any questions, I'm glad to answer them from my standpoint, but otherwise you might ask the applicant if they have anything to add.
Applicant, do you have anything to add?
This is Paul Tulikangas from Nowak and Frost Engineers. Can everyone hear me? I just want to make sure I'm okay.
Yes.
So I think Dan did a good brief overview of the project. Essentially, as he alluded to, the main central area directly south of the building will be kind of the customer parking areas, and then on the east and west sides of that, it'll be cordoned off with a 2.5-foot tall fence to be basically the the RV inventory storage areas, which is kind of ties into the special land use approval that we're requesting for the ability to store exterior storage of the vehicles.
Okay, I saw Trustee Sherry Frazier.
Yeah, I just like to say Camping World has been a good neighbor to Van Buren Township, and I think that this plan will is a good one, and it'll attract more residents to our area, perhaps, because it's going to give it's going to make us known as the Camping World place to be, and I just think it's a win-win for us. So I think it's a good plan.
Does anybody else wish to speak? Because I no longer have faces. So.
Supervisor, I have a question.
Thank you. Then Miller, I heard Miller, then Bud.
So I wanted to ask you, are you just selling or are you also renting campers? Or is it strictly just sale of campers?
Paul?
We do not rent campers. It's strictly new inventory sales and minor repair.
Oh, I see. Thank you.
Treasurer Bud.
Just to say the Planning Commission, of course, had looked at this and had given it the preliminary. And I think all the planning commissioners would echo the same thing, that we were glad to see that now there was going to be a lot of cleaning up in the area that needed to be done and straightened up. Not that the other was bad, but this is really going to make a spot there that is going to be much more attractive to the people traveling on the highway and the roads.
I have to ask if anybody else wants to speak because I don't have faces yet.
Yeah, Supervisor.
Clerk Wright.
Clerk Wright. I'd just like to say, I'd like to thank Mr. Matter. I would thank him for bringing it forward. I support any business that's been here in the township for a while. As long, I know he's been here as long as I can remember. And I've always tried to support businesses to try to do anything that's going to help them survive. So I think this is something that's going to help him be able to enhance his business. And also, as Treasury Bud say, beautify that area. So I support it.
Okay, by voice, is there anybody else that wishes to speak?
Supervisor, I just like to say, I know that you're in sales only at this time, but I think with the economy, you should look into maybe rentals of these units. I know that there are some places in the area that you can rent them.
Sherry wants to go on vacation.
Yeah, I'd like to try it out before any commitment. You might consider that.
Okay, could you take down the Camping World preliminary site plan, please? Okay, now I can see people again. So is there anybody else that wants to make comment before I call this to a vote? Hearing, I have a motion for approval. I have a second. Hearing no further comment, Clerk Wright, would you please call roll?
Okay. Trustee Martin.
Yes.
Trustee Miller,
Yes.
trustee White,
Yes.
trustee Frazier,
Yes.
treasurer Bud.
Yes.
Yes for me, Supervisor McNair.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. This next item is a discussion on, and we're considering approval of, a policy resolution to relax certain administrative review processes and fees regarding temporary land use for outdoor food, beverage service, and retail in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Can I get a motion for approval?
Through the chair.
Supervisor.
Trustee Martin?
Support.
I make a
Go ahead, Trustee Martin, could you make the motion?
I make a motion to consider approval of a policy resolution to relax certain administrative review processes and fees regarding temporary land uses for outdoor food, beverage service, and retail in response to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Okay, and I think I had Treasurer Bud, but I'm not sure. Was that what I heard?
No, that was.
It was
Sharon.
Reggie.
It was
I mean.
Reggie.
White.
okay.
Miller seconded.
It was Reggie. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Trustee Miller.
Reggie.
All right. All
Sorry about
right. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, it's really hard with these things on.
Yeah.
Director Powers, could you please speak on this issue?
Hello?
Director Power, you're not on.
Well, yeah, his internet must have cut out as well. We just
That's
lost
okay.
him.
This is the one that the Chamber's asked us to support. I believe it's gone through the state of Michigan, and there's rules that they're throwing out there to basically allow people to open up outside, increase some of their sales a little bit, provide for social distancing. So basically, we're trying to help out our local businesses without Dan
Which is
Power.
very important right now.
Yeah.
To support, keep our local economy going.
Belleville has a similar one, and they've enacted theirs, I'm told. And so,
Through the chair.
Trustee Miller.
So a few weeks ago, I was on a webinar with MTA about how to help our local businesses. And this is what they recommended. Look, these places are barely hanging on with 50% capacity.
Exactly.
So we have to do as a township everything that we can to help them survive through this crisis. So I'm absolutely in support of this. And there's no end date to this, is there?
Yeah.
So,
Go ahead.
What is it?
Okay. Through the chair, I have returned. Apologize for that. Is it okay if I speak to this quickly?
Please.
Yes.
Okay, I apologize. That was a loose click. I got back into the meeting. So, Trustee Miller, you are absolutely right. And I think I heard the sentiment that we need to support the businesses that are trying to recover economically from COVID-19, get something resembling occupancy and capacity that they had before this all started, but still being able to maintain safe distancing, given that there will be indoor capacity issues. So we kind of went over some of this, but the challenge to our businesses is that the executive orders were and public health conditions put limits in place for businesses and closed businesses basically from March until early June for valid reason. But when reopening, which began on June 4th for certain retailers and June 8th for certain restaurants and food and beverage service businesses, they were limited on their indoor occupancy. So the current process in Van Buren Township, there are numerous ways you can get to what we're talking about here, but the process that I would think would normally occur based on a review of our zoning ordinance is that for outdoor uses that exceed 7 days or 2 weekends, there would be a site plan review for permanent uses in certain commercial zoning districts or a temporary land use review with the Planning Commission for uses that are meant to be temporary, as well as an administrative fee. We think those kinds of hurdles, while they're not unreasonable for the general conditions, would be a significant hurdle to get over for businesses trying to get back up and running. So the proposed policy is a feeless, simple, and administrative application for temporary outdoor food and beverage service and retail in response to the need to safely maximize occupancy using outdoor space due to COVID-19. So what I have before you is a semblance of something that we see in various communities in the region. There are examples in many places. There are different ways to get to this, but what I have before you tonight is a policy resolution for temporary outdoor food and beverage service and retail related to meeting capacity needs specifically due to COVID-19. This does have a expiration date of October 31st, but that is simply to set a reasonable limit based on what we think will be the good weather months, and certainly allows flexibility to revisit this or extend it by another resolution if it is successful and indeed still necessary around that time. We wanted to just make sure there was a limit in place so that this is not a override of the zoning ordinance text amendment process. We want to make sure that if there's a more permanent desire for outdoor retail and dining, that it's done strategically and that it can stand the test of time and go through the public process. But this is just to get back businesses up and running as soon as possible for what we think is a reasonably long period this year. The application will be done through the Planning and Economic Development Department. It would involve review of hours of operation, parking, waste disposal, perimeter treatment of the retail or dining area, and other details that planning, public safety, and DDA staff would take a look at if it is in the DDA district. Like I said, Planning Commission review and fee would be waived for the businesses through October 31st. Would not overrule any executive order, any local ordinance, could be repealed or refined by the township board, and could be extended by the township board, and would apply to parking areas only, no public streets or on-street parking areas. This is more of just a function of what would be the outcome of a review process. It's not verbatim in the text of the resolution, but there are a few places where, from a public safety standpoint in the township, we could justify closing streets down. So I think most of the businesses who would use this, and we can always revisit this, but most of the businesses that would use this would be using it in parking areas. We will get an application form up on the website as soon as possible. There's a final draft version of an application out there, and we had a discussion with Applebee's today about how to apply. And they have a example picture on your screen here of what they've done in Southgate. So they may be looking to do something similar here in the township. So I'll get out of the way with no further ado. If you have any questions about this resolution, feel free to ask me. And otherwise, I look forward to helping to support the businesses getting back up on their feet.
I saw Trustee Frazier. All I see is Frazier and Bud. Anybody else that wants to go is going to have to let me know. So
You could take down the screen now.
yeah, if you take the screen down, I can see everybody.
Okay.
Okay.
I just think it's extremely important that we do everything possible to help our local businesses and our restaurant people to stay in business. And remember, they're going to have to invest money in getting outdoor furniture and this kind of thing. So they're going to have an investment to make, and we have to be cooperative and help them survive. And I think it's a good plan, and I look forward to eating outside at my favorite restaurants on Belleville Road.
Trustee Miller, who's figured out the hand that I haven't figured out yet. So
No, I've already given my comments, so
okay.
that
All right.
hand was from earlier and you didn't see it, so we're good. That was
right,
like three motions ago.
Okay, Trustee Bud.
Just to say, the Planning Commission was also very eager to see this happen. And so when Dan brought it to us, we were pleased because we all, I think every one of us realized what our business have gone through, and it's our job to make sure we can help them any way we can. And like he said, there is a stop date, but if it has to be extended, we can extend that too. Hopefully that won't happen and everybody will be up and get through this together. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
Does
Thank
anybody
you.
else want to speak on this?
Supervisor.
Trustee White and Clerk Wright after that.
Okay, this is very common in a lot of different areas. You'll see hot dog vendors on the street corners, root beer vendors on the street corners, and you go to any town that has any type of visitation to it. We expect this, especially I've been over in Ontario many times, and there are a lot of street vendors out there, and I think that this probably will cover street vendors, but the way I read it, it'll be on private lots, but I think we should also include street vendors on this with a application to operate and work on some of our street corners. And I think it would be a great addition to the township, where you stop at the corner of Haggerty and Tyler, or Bevel Road and Tyler, and pick up a root beer or a hot dog, something like that. And that would be beneficial to people driving through our township, and also additional revenue for the township.
Clerk Wright?
Yeah, I definitely, again, support anything we can do to help our local businesses. As long as they understand they're in Van Buren Township, I'm all for it.
Okay. All right. I don't think that we can change the thing for street vendors at this time, but we can consider that going forward.
To the chair.
Trustee Martin?
I'd just like to pair with the rest of the board, and I agree that's a great idea. We have to do everything we can to support our local businesses, and this is a step in the right direction.
Okay. All right. I think that's everybody, right? Okay.
Mhm.
So we've had a motion for approval. We have support. Hearing no further discussion, Clerk Wright, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Martin?
Yes.
Trustee Miller?
Yes.
Trustee White?
Yes.
Trustee Frazier?
Yes.
Treasurer Bud?
Yes.
So yes for me. Supervisor McNair?
Yes.
Got a full house.
Okay, the
Motion
motion passes. Thank you. And Mike Cole, thank you for letting us know that the chamber was backing that, and
Mhm.
resonates with this group.
Mhm.
We want to work together. Yeah. All right. So the next item is discussion on and consider approval of a lot split combination. Who would like that?
Supervisor, I'd like
Trustee
to
Frazier, could you read it off?
a motion to consider approval of a lot split combination on 83-080-01-0067-000 and 83-080-01-0068-000.
Support.
Boy, there's a
Yeah,
lot.
Trustee White. Yeah. Okay, so Director Stevenson, could you, excuse me, assessing coordinator? Stevenson. She's not there. Are you still there?
Sorry,
That's all right.
yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'll start over. This is just a formality for the board to approve this combination. It's because it's located in a platted subdivision. It's in Edgewater Heights subdivision, which this property happens to be on Ormond Drive. As you can see from the survey that was in your packet, the property encroaches already. The two lots, it's a little bit older of a house, and over the years, the garage and another building have been built on the other side of the lot. So when these homeowners purchased it in 2019 and had the survey done, like I said, it's just a formality. It should have probably been combined years ago, and now we're doing the right thing and having it combined. So just a formality. They've brought in all their paperwork. They've been great to work with during COVID. We've had a lot of emails back and forth. And so I hope the board approves this so that they can move on with this.
All right, is there any questions?
No, I think we have to do it. It's a good policy to help our new residents out with, what they felt was encroaching on their property. I think we need to approve this.
Okay, I have a motion by trustee Frazier and it's been supported by trustee White. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Wright, would you please call the roll?
Okay, yes for me, Treasurer Bud,
Yes.
trustee Frazier,
Yes.
trustee Miller,
Yes.
trustee Martin,
Yes.
trustee White,
Yes.
supervisor McNair.
Yes,
Motion passed.
thank you. Next item would be reports. We have none. Then public comment for non-agenda items. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to comment?
Supervisor, I'm not seeing any at this time.
Last call. Anybody from the public? Okay. Anybody from the board that would like to make comment? Okay. I will state that we are going into budgets. Departments will begin starting next week. I do owe one person a phone call that is asked to talk about the budget. If anybody wants to talk before we do the budget, that's great. You always have, it's your budget, so you could do whatever you want up until the end. But I just, at the end, when we do our budget by department, we'll obviously get together one-on-one to let you know what we've done and see what you think. Okay. Any comments on anything?
Supervisor, I'd just like to comment that I think the way we do the budget is a fair process. And I appreciate you calling us in one by one to get our concerns or questions that we have regarding the proposed budget.
Okay, thank you. Oh, thank you. Thanks. Okay, I'm going to call for adjournment. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
Motion, support, all in favor. Hearing no, okay, Clerk Wright, roll call.
Okay, yes for me, Treasurer Bud,
Yes.
trustee Frazier,
Yes.
trustee Miller,
Yes.
trustee Martin,
Yes.
trustee White,
Yes.
supervisor.
Yes.
We out of here. All
Thank
right.
you. See you in
All
2 weeks.
right.
Bye-bye. Actually, I'll see you guys over the next week. Bye, guys.
Good night.
Good night. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry about that, but that's why I'm here.
No worries.
Okay.